Good evening and welcome to the call. I'm Christine Jones. I'm a Republican candidate for governor here in Arizona. I very much appreciate you joining our live town hall tonight. If you'd like to ask me a question, you can press 0 at any time and you'll be entered into the queue. Again, if you'd like to ask a question anytime during this call, press 0 and you'll be entered into the question queue. Thank you. As the only Republican in the race that's not held public office, I come to this with no strings attached. I am an outsider to the political establishment, so I don't adhere to the typical campaign strategy of talking around topics and only taking vague stances on issues. Actually, it's quite the contrary. I want you to know where I stand on all the issues that are important to you. The political establishment crowd has told us, and I think they believe, my strategy of being transparent is very bold, but to me it's the right thing to do. I'm asking for your vote, and if you are to give me your vote, I think you're entitled to know where I stand. Many of you on this call tonight have already received your early ballots. If you're still undecided in this race, I'd like to earn your vote tonight. So please grab your ballot, and if during the course of this call I'm able to earn your support, I'd ask that you fill out your ballot for me. If there's a question you'd like to ask me, press 0, and you'll be entered into the queue where you can ask me about what matters to you. This election is far too important. We must keep Arizona headed in the right direction. We need a strong governor who will defend our Constitution and protect our state. I'm the only candidate that has never held public office, and I have proposed bold plans both in border security and economic development and education, just to name a few. I've earned the support of law enforcement, small business owners, and regular, hardworking Arizonans. I'm not the establishment choice because I don't owe anybody anything. I don't have any favors out there that somebody's going to come collect. It's my pledge that as your governor, I will listen to one voice when it comes to Arizona, and that's the voice of the people. I have been attacked, as you've probably seen, by the establishment crowd because they've seen that Arizonans are excited about having a governor that's an outsider. And this conservative message that we've shared all over the state has really resonated with voters. I think that's probably why groups from South Dakota and Virginia are attempting to influence the vote here in Arizona. That's why I want to hold these calls with you. I want you to know who I am. I want you to hear directly from me where I stand and how I'll govern. And most importantly, I want you to know the truth. Not the spin, not the lies, not the taking out of context, and not the things that you've heard in the attacks. So before we kick off the call, let me know what matters to you most. Do you want to discuss my stance on the Second Amendment, my plan to secure the border, how I plan to grow the Arizona economy, my thoughts on improving education, anything you want to talk about? Press 0 now to enter the question queue. We'll take whatever questions you have, no holds barred. I'm happy to answer anything because, again, if I'm to earn your vote, I really think you're entitled to know where I stand on these issues. Again, I'm holding this call because I do want to earn your vote. So please, if you could find your early ballot while the call is taking place, if I do earn your vote and your trust, go ahead and fill out your ballot to support me. We can't afford to elect an establishment candidate who's beholden to the political kingmakers that got them into office. As governor, every Arizonan will have an equal audience with me. I'm not indebted to the political establishment. I'm indebted to the voters of Arizona. Again, the only candidate in the race who has never held public office. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the political working class that has kept the status quo. Okay, folks, with that, I'd like to start the call and put the voice back in the hands of the people. We've already got a bunch of people in the question queue. Again, you can press 0 if you'd like to ask me a question, and we're going to start with Priscilla and Mesa. You get to go first. How you doing?
Yes, I'd like to know specifically what would be your first move in securing the border that perhaps hasn't been done before.
Great question, Priscilla. It's one of the three major focuses that I've had on this campaign since day one, probably, and the single biggest issue that everybody around the state wants to talk about. I've published a detailed plan, and I'd encourage you to go to ChristineJones.com and read it. I won't go through all of the details here, but I'll tell you the top 3 issues that I've called for. The first is 1,200 troops on the border. They act in this support capacity to civilian law enforcement agents who have the authority to arrest and incarcerate people who are engaged in committing crimes. The second piece is to use technology to monitor who's coming and going. I happen to have spent about almost 11 years helping to grow a technology company here in Arizona, and so I'm very familiar with technology that's available to help us monitor the coming and going. And then the third piece is we got to finish the fence in strategic areas. We have to have a a delay, some kind of a support for law enforcement that's at the border to help stop trafficking in very highly trafficked, known smuggling routes. So troops on the border, technology, and the fence, those three things taken together, when we did this in the Yuma sector, saw border crossings reduced by about 97%. The good news is the border crossings were substantially reduced, and the Border Patrol today is able to hold that ground because kind of this military concept is once you take the ground, you get to keep it. So that's specifically what I do. It's very expensive to do it. I'm saying that the taxpayers of Arizona are going to have to take this on ourselves, and then we'll seek reimbursement from the federal government. There's a couple of legal theories that'll help us do that, but we cannot afford not to do this anymore, Priscilla. We have to get this under control because you and the rest of your fellow taxpayers in Arizona are spending about $2.8 billion every single year to educate, incarcerate, and provide medical services to people who are citizens of other countries, and it simply has to stop. We cannot afford to let this number balloon out of control anymore. So that's kind of the short version of the border security approach. I've taken a real hard look at this with law enforcement, Border Patrol, customs agents, military, everybody who exists down at the border to try to say what we can do, and that's my best collection of all the ideas I've gotten, and I'm very hopeful that we'll get something done with it probably within the first 12 to 18 months after I take office. So thank you very much for the question. We're going to keep moving on. I am Christine Jones. I'm a Republican candidate for governor. Thank you very much for being on the call tonight. You can always press 0 if you'd like to ask a question. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can in the next hour or so. Next question we're going to take is from Kathy in Cave Creek.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi there. Question for you about education. I've got 3 kids in elementary school, so Common Core is a real issue in my household. And I'm just wondering what your position is on Common Core, and if you're against it, how will you get rid of it?
Yeah, I'm opposed to Common Core for a couple of reasons. And to put it in perspective for you, when my husband retired from the military, he became a high school teacher. So we've been looking at the transition from Ames into the implementation of Common Core for about the last 12 years now. He just started his 13th year in teaching in the local high school here. So a couple of things that strike me as being a problem with Common Core. One is, and I think we can all agree, the people who are constitutionalists, that the Constitution does not give the federal government the right to control education, and we have to take that back at the state level. A bureaucrat sitting 2,500 miles away in Washington should not be establishing state standards for the people that are being educated in Arizona. You know, a bureaucrat who's never stepped foot in an Arizona classroom, who doesn't know your 3 kids who are in elementary school, shouldn't be telling you how to educate your kids. But even worse than that, as a teacher, I can tell you, and my husband has struggled through this every single day, Common Core is requiring teachers to spend a disproportionately large percentage of the classroom time complying with the standards, and it leaves very, very little time left to actually teach or impart knowledge. And I personally think that should be the other way around. I think you should spend the majority of your classroom time teaching and not teaching tests, right? We have a saying in our house, we teach kids, not tests. So for those couple of reasons, I'm opposed to Common Core. What do we do going forward? Clearly, we've got to have state standards, and rigorous academics are important and critical for our education environment here. We have to take some of the really great models of education that we've got here in Arizona, and we do have some of the finest models of education of any state in the country. We have to fund them properly. We have to get those repeated into the failing schools, and we must get more dollars into the classroom. At the moment, Arizona spends about 54 cents on the dollar on average in classroom spending. The national average is about 62 cents per dollar, and that difference, that 7 or 8 cents per dollar, is a huge difference in getting kids educated. If you look at the public school districts in Arizona that are doing a really great job, they're mostly closer to the national average. So we have to get some of the spending from the administrative level out of administration and down into the classroom. We've got to have more teachers. We have to pay teachers properly, lower student-teacher ratios, curriculum supplies, all of the things that we need to have excellent education for our kids. And this is real personal to me, Kathy, because I came up in a pretty humble beginning, like most people in Arizona. The reason I was able to go on to educational success and professional success is because I actually went to a really great public school. And I think every kid should have exactly the same opportunity I did to have an excellent public school education. So thank you very much for being on the line, and thanks for asking the question. We are going to go to Violet in Mesa. Violet, how you doing tonight? Did we lose Violet in Mesa? Okay, we don't have Violet's gone. We're going to go to James in Scottsdale.
Hi, yes. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to tell you, first of all, that I'm a lifelong Republican, and you've already got my mail-in ballot coming with your name on it. And I'll tell you that's because this is not necessarily a positive endorsement, and I'll explain, but it's because you're not the darling of Ted Cruz or Sheriff Joe.
Thank you.
Now, having said that, I'll tell you, I want to really know what your vision is for improving Arizona's status in the business community. And I think probably a good example of a state to look to would be Texas.
Yeah, this is a really important question. I'm glad you raised that, and it's rarely put to me exactly like that. But I think this is a great way to think about it, because we all know that Texas has been recruiting companies from around the country, a lot of them from California, to move to Texas or to expand into Texas. And as I do the analysis, it turns out that there's really one critical reason why they're doing that. And, you know, as we grew at GoDaddy around the state and around the country and around the world, we did this analysis of where would we grow next many times. And we had this conversation with so many business development groups. There's a difference. You know, there's a reason we went to Amsterdam and Singapore and Toronto and London and, you know, some of these cities and not the others, because the approach of the local economic development team matters. So when you look at Texas, you have to acknowledge that Texas is eating our lunch on this, because the governor of Texas himself personally actually gets on a plane, flies to Silicon Valley, sits down with the CEO and says, let me tell you why Texas is your wisest choice. And then he makes a deal. And I think it's time for us to have a governor in this state who's ready to make a deal with business owners, with CEOs who would be expanding and or relocating anyway, to say, let me tell you why Arizona is the place you need to go. Because we're competitive on most of the things that Texas has. And oh, by the way, we have less natural disasters, we have lots of energy, we have lots of sun, we have land that's not very expensive, we have a lot to offer businesses, but we have to get out there and have that conversation. We haven't had a governor that did that in a long time, probably not since Governor Fannin back in the 60s, if you can imagine, when he took Carl Hayden and Barry Goldwater, you know, the two U.S. senators at the time, and they went on a road show, and they approached all the aerospace companies, the semiconductor companies. They went out, affirmatively built up these industry concentrations. We have to do that again. Now that we've kind of navigated through this really difficult economic downturn, that single thing will have a profound impact on how people perceive Arizona. You know, if you have some wins in some of these areas, and my personal focus, of course, is technology, because that's what I spent the last 11 years doing. If you go and you recruit a couple of technology companies, or have some technology companies build data centers in Arizona, I can tell you what, success breeds success. You will establish a reputation around those industry concentrations, and that focus on branding, messaging, and defining your image will accrue to our benefit. But you have to do it on purpose. It doesn't just happen. Just like in business, you don't sell stuff just by happenstance. You got to go market your product, and I think that's critical for us to do in the next number of years for Arizona's future. So thank you very much for the question, James, and thank you for the confidence in the vote. We need every vote we can get, because this election is going to come down to the wire on Election Day, so tell everybody you know not to give up their chance to vote. Once again, for those of you joining, I'm Christine Jones. I am a Republican candidate for governor here in Arizona, and this is really me, live and in person. This is not a recording. You're welcome to ask a question if you'd like. I've tried to be as open and transparent throughout this whole election process as I can be. I really enjoy these telephone town halls because I get to hear from people all over the state. No questions are off limit. You're welcome to ask anything you want. Press 0 if you want to ask a question. You'll be connected to an operator, and they'll put you in the question queue. We're going to go to Nola in Mesa. Nola, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being on the line.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I wasn't a fan of yours, I'm going to be real honest, but the more and more I hear you talking, just like the gentleman before me who says that, you're not one of those people who are, one of the Joe Arpaio darlings or one of the other people in the state. But anyways, what I want to ask you is how do you answer to a critic like Mr. John McCain, who says that your remedies to the issues to the border is unrealistic and that the state cannot afford those things that you're saying you're going to do? How do you answer to critics like that?
Well, first of all,
I heard him say that the other day on the radio station.
Yeah, I heard him say that too. And first of all, thank you for acknowledging that I'm not part of the establishment. I think it's probably the single biggest strength I have in this entire race is I'm not beholden to those guys. The only people I owe are the people who vote for me. And really, it's important for me, for people to hear that. I'm coming out of the private sector just like all of you guys. I'm a private citizen, and I'm doing this because I'm kind of tired of the same old like you are. I actually heard that McCain said something about my border security plan, too, and I had to kind of laugh because I thought, you know what? If you don't think we can pay for it as a state, Senator, why aren't you bringing the money here? You represent this state in the United States Congress. It is your job to get this border secure. So I kind of thought he was criticizing himself in a way, but he's right. This is going to be tough for us to afford. But my position is, and I'm a CPA, I've looked at these numbers really closely. It's going to cost us about $270 million to carry out my plan. And we're going to have to allocate that in the budget session at the beginning of the next legislative session that starts in January. It's going to be hard. We're going to have to tighten our belt in some other areas. But we cannot afford not to do this anymore, Nola. We spend almost $3 billion a year on educating, incarcerating, and providing medical services to people who are citizens of other countries. I'm recommending for us to take about 10%, a little less than 10% of that money and get this border secure so that we can start to save that money, reallocate it to other budget line items like the education or medical care or law enforcement, or let's just send some of it back to the taxpayers where it belongs. This is really time. That number grows every single year, and pretty soon it's going to balloon so far out of proportion it's going to be bigger than the whole state's budget. So yeah, it's going to be tough for us. And yes, we should go seek reimbursement from the federal government. This is their expense. This is their job. They should be doing this. But at this point, the highest goal that I have as the governor is to provide a stable, safe, secure environment for the people of the state of Arizona. That includes securing the border. Doesn't include shutting it down. It's quite the opposite. We need to know who's coming and going. We need to enhance our relationship with Mexico. They are our single largest trading partner. But we also have to be honest with ourselves and say, Congress isn't fixing this. You know, if Congress wanted to fix this, they would have fixed this decades ago. And if Senator McCain has such a great plan on it, why hasn't he done it? Why hasn't he brought this funding back? I'm just saying I'm willing to go fight for the state of Arizona. You know, I fought against the federal government before when I was at GoDaddy. That's why I didn't turn over records to the NSA. And I'm happy to do it again. I just think we need to take it seriously as a state. So thank you very much for your kind words and for your support, and I hope you'll take that message back to the folks that you know, too, who are asking that same question, because I suspect you're not the only one that had it. Okay. Again, I'm Christine Jones. If you want to ask a question, press 0. I'm going to go to Rex and Chandler for the next question.
Yes, good evening, Christine. This is Rex. Just had one question for you. I am a retired Air Force and also a Vietnam vet, and during the campaign there was some negative comments about somebody had stated that you had once stated that you were in the military, and I just wanted a clarification from you whether you were or were not. I know you're married or are married to an Air Force officer, which is a canoe for you.
Yeah, thank you, Rex, for bringing that up. You know, it's first of all, thank you for your service. Okay, my husband's also a Vietnam veteran and a retired Air Force officer, and I have an immense amount of respect for anybody who put their life on the line and wore that uniform. Particularly the blue one, if you must know, because my husband still gets up every morning and puts on his blue uniform like he's been doing for about 40 years now. But I have an immense amount of respect. The context for the ad that you're talking about was some conversation that I had with a a radio show or a blog that was kind of taken out of context, I was accused of saying that I was a military veteran, which of course I've never said and would never say, and somehow saying that I had had a career in the Air Force, which again I never said. The truth of the matter is, my lifelong dream was to be an Air Force officer. I ran off to college to join the Air Force through the Air Force ROTC program. Midstream in my ROTC training, I met my husband, or the man who would eventually become my husband. He was already on active duty. So together we made a decision that I would give up my dream of becoming an Air Force officer. I got out of the Corps. I got out of the ROTC program there, and he stayed on active duty, and we've been a military family for 27 years. So it is one of those things that my opponents have used to attack me and took out of context. It's very frustrating to me because not only is it inappropriate to use the military to your personal political gain, but it also suggests to me that it disrespects the service of every military spouse, of every career military person, enlisted or officer, particularly the ones that are sitting home tonight with their spouses deployed, wondering if that guy or that gal is going to come home alive or dead. And I think that is inappropriate, and I think it says a whole lot more about my opponents and the people who made those ads than it ever said about me. So thank you very much for asking the question, and thank you for your service. As I said, I have an immense amount of respect for you. All right. Next up is Edith and Mesa. Again, while we're getting Edith on the line, if you'd like to ask a question, please press 0, and we'll get to you as fast as we can. Edith, how are you tonight?
Fine, thank you. Christina, we're an implant from Washington State, and my husband and I both are voting for you. We are so sick and tired of all the corruption within our system that we cannot believe it. And our feeling is, as out of almost everybody that is running, you are the only one that is stepping up and telling the truth. You've paid your taxes. You've done this. You've done that. Your husband's been military. And I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for being honest.
Thank you, Edith. Thank you so much. I tell you, after the establishment spent almost $2 million attacking me over the last 4 months, it's really nice to hear somebody say something nice. So thank you very much. I'm just like you. I'm just a private citizen. I've had very good fortune in my professional life. Arizona's been very good to me. And, my husband and I have had a very great life being a military family. We feel like it's a real privilege to be able to give back. But, it is a little bit ironic that the corruption and the attacks and the back scratching and, all of these endorsements and politicians telling you who you're supposed to vote for come down to really, me and the establishment guy. And in the end, what we need is for people who think like you to grab their ballot, vote for me, send it in, or get to the polls on election day so that we can actually once and for all break this cycle. It looks like we have a real chance in Arizona. Arizona can be an example for the rest of the states to say, you know what, we're not taking this anymore. We're going to take the voice back. We're going to give the voters their choice. And the only person I'm going to owe, because I've never been in office before, is you. I'm nobody's governor but yours. That's it. I don't know anybody anything. We're just going to go acknowledge issues for what they are, just statewide challenges that require cooperation and leadership to solve. And we're going to get things done in the economy and education, securing the border, so many other areas, water, energy, land management, forest management, so many areas that we could do if we weren't beholden to special interests. So thank you very much for your nice comments. I really cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Okay, once again, I'm Christine Jones, for those of you joining. Thanks, everybody, for being on the call. We are dialing a lot of numbers, and we've got a lot of people still joining. So if you're just joining, I'm Christine Jones. I'm a Republican candidate for governor here in Arizona. Hopefully, by now, you know that much, and I'm going to take Mary in Phoenix as the next question. Mary, you're on the line. For those of you who'd like to ask a question, please press 0, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. How you doing, Mary?
Good, Christine. Thanks for taking my call. I would just like to ask you where you stand on gun control, especially for the state of Arizona, with it being a border state.
Yeah, great question, Mary. One of the things that I want you to know about me is I am a fierce defender of the Constitution, especially our Second Amendment right to bear arms. And I really have focused on the Second Amendment because if you look at the Constitution as a whole, the Second Amendment gave us the First, and it gives us the ability to defend and protect all the others. And I happen to be an advocate for gun ownership. I have a gun myself and a concealed weapons permit, but I really think that we have to acknowledge that the Second Amendment is critical to the ongoing support of the fabric of this country. You know, we were built on a set of documents, and they are set apart and guarantee rights for a reason. So as governor, my focus will be on no abridgment of your Second Amendment right to bear arms. And, you know, one of the other things that's interesting as we've traveled around the state, and I think I said I've done 25 Second Amendment events all over the state, lots of people come out to these events in gun shops and gun ranges, you know, even some outdoor gun ranges we've gone to and had a great time with citizens in all walks of life. You'd be surprised how many people come into those events that have never owned a gun. They don't even care about owning a gun. They don't hunt. They don't have any interest in it whatsoever, but they care about the Constitution and they care about the Second Amendment. And there is a real passion about it, especially in Arizona where people are afraid. The people, especially who live down by the border, because there's so much trafficking and so much cartel activity that they worry, is that, you know, in their day-to-day life, if they're going to be in danger. And, you know, I noticed you live in Phoenix, but it's, you know, if you live down by the border and you have to walk around wondering if you're going to get shot or if you're going to get attacked or somebody's going to come take over your house, that's not America. We got to be serious about getting people to a point where they feel safe again. So I think we really have to be focused as a state and as leadership in this state to say we're standing up for the Second Amendment, and we're going to have responsible gun ownership, and we're going to have the ability for people to protect themselves. And it's a commitment I have, and you won't have to worry about that if I'm the governor. So thanks for the great question. All right. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, you can hit 0. You'll be connected to an operator. I'm Christine Jones. I am a Republican candidate for governor. We've got 6 days until the election. We're trying to get people out to vote. We're trying to get people to send their early ballots back, trying to get people to invite their friends to vote. We've got a low voter turnout in this state, and the way we get the grassroots moving is to get people to get other people to vote, and that's how we take this voice back to the voters and take it away from the establishment and the cronies. So keep the faith, and we're really very hopeful about what the outcome's going to be. Now, Marianne in Casa Grande, is that where we're going next? Okay, Marianne, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Thank you for being on the line.
I'm afraid I'm going to get a little emotional, but your phone call before, when you called and said, right off the bat, I'm not going to lie, I've had a DUI. That caught my attention because when I was 15 years old, my cousin was killed by a drunk driver. And so I listened to your whole talk, and I was really happy about your honesty. I sent in my early ballot today, and I'm so glad I get a chance to talk to you because morals and ethics are huge for me, and I really would like to hear how have you learned from your mistake? Have you grown from that? Can you make me feel better about that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for your candor, and I'm profoundly sorry about your cousin. It's not a situation that any of us could ever take the grief away, and I wouldn't even try. I would empathize and sympathize and tell you I'm sorry that happened. It's not acceptable. I made a stupid mistake, okay? Now, the details of my incident are not even really important. The bottom line is I should never have gotten behind the wheel of a car that night. I got lucky. There was no accident. Nobody was hurt. It was just me and the police officer on the side of the road. Thank God. But I've also used that lesson to tell lots of young women that I mentor and lots of kids that we teach in high school and lots of people that are around us to say, if you have had any alcohol to drink, anything, even if you think you are stone cold sober, do not get behind the wheel of a car. 0 tolerance for any alcohol consumption if you're going to drive. Arizona has very, very tough DUI laws, and they should be tough, right? We should be protecting people. I have used that, and by the way, I would say that was a mistake the first time. If you do it again, it's negligence. I have not made that mistake a second time. I very much learned from it, and I've been able to teach a lot of other people to learn from my mistake too. And you know what? If anybody on this call questions whether you can have a glass of wine at dinner and drive home, I would challenge you. Think about Mary Ann's cousin and think about my incident and say, you know what? You just can't. You just can't drink alcohol and get behind the wheel of a car. So thank you for asking, Mary Ann. It was about 10 years ago that happened, and I've really tried to be open and honest with people because I think if you're going to have somebody as your governor, you should be entitled to know, right? We all have sins. We all have scars in our past. We all have stories to tell, but you're entitled to know. And it's one of the reasons I've asked my other colleagues and the opponents in this race to be honest and open about their backgrounds, because I think you should know everything that is relevant to the race, and that includes the fact that I was convicted of a DUI 10 years ago. So thank you for bringing it up. Thank you very much for your support. I'd love it if you'd spread the word and help me educate other people about not making the same mistake that I did. So thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, we have a lot of people still waiting. We're going to go to Sharon in Sedona for the next question. If you want to ask a question, you can.
Hello.
Hi, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you for running. You were at an event in my neighborhood at Bert Ensley's house, and unfortunately, we could not attend. And I wondered a couple things. Did you go to the Sedona Veterans Memorial Park? Did anybody tell you about this?
I'm not sure offhand, Sharon. It's familiar, but is it at the same place that has the memorial to honor women?
Yes, and the two women, I know them. One's deceased. My husband has a plaque there. My husband's still alive, thank God. He's a Korean veteran. But I'm really glad you went there.
Yeah, I did go there.
And go ahead. Go ahead. I got emotional. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry you didn't get to go to the Ensleys. Bert is a fabulous cook. For the rest of the people on the call, bear with me for a second to share that with Sharon. But there's a lovely memorial in Sedona that's been placed there by some private citizens who raised money to honor military veterans from all four services and from all the conflicts where people in Arizona have served. And it is really touching and moving. And Sharon, I appreciate your husband's service very much. I thank you that you knew that I was there. I was there for the dedication of the Women's Memorial part of it and recognizing women who have made a difference in Arizona history. But, you know, as we've traveled around, we've been in all 15 counties. I've driven now, I think it's almost 45,000 miles all over the state. We've met a lot of incredible people, not just in Sedona, but everywhere we go. There are smart, thoughtful, caring, incredible people in Arizona, and it really gives me hope to reach out and meet people like you, Sharon, people all over the state. I really think together we really can take this thing and put the voice back in the hands of the voters. And that's why I'm running for governor, because I think we need a private citizen who says, I'm not beholden, I don't owe anybody anything. We can really go get some really good, productive stuff done if we acknowledge challenges and just apply good, solid cooperation and leadership to solve them. So give my best to your husband as well, Sharon, please. Okay, Karen in Scottsdale, talk to us tonight. What's on your mind?
Oh, is that me, Karen?
That's you, Karen.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Hi. I have to first say it's been a pleasure listening to this. I have to say it's really very enlightening, and I'm very happy to keep listening, even though it kind of is a difficult time for me right now because, you know, family and dinner and all that, but it really is very enlightening. So thank you very much for doing this. And I had a question, but I think you've kind of already answered it a little bit, but I will ask again, and can I guess maybe just reiterate, but I keep hearing all these endorsements for other people, but I have not heard any for you. I do like and have heard you saying that you don't owe anybody. I love that, and I love that, you know, you special interest groups aren't paying you off so that you can have their vote, all of that. So I'm surmising that is why you have not maybe received many endorsements from like the Republic or, you know, Arpaio or, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad you asked that question because it's an important one. I actually haven't asked anybody for an endorsement. I've met public officials, mayors, city council members, county supervisors, members of the legislature, all kinds of elected officials all over the state, and I have asked them all the same question. Tell me your suggestions. Tell me your ideas. Let's together get the collective wisdom that we have and come up with good solutions. But I have affirmatively not asked any elected official for an endorsement, and I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, I don't think it's helpful to have half the people endorsing one candidate and half the people endorsing another in the Republican primary. I think it's divisive, and I think in the end we all should be gathered together on August 27th supporting one candidate for victory for a Republican in November, and I don't think it's helpful to have this division in the party. But the most important reason is because I'm not doing this for the establishment. I'm not part of the establishment. I actually am doing this without any strings attached. I've never run for office before. I don't owe anybody anything, and I don't want to. The only people I'm going to owe are the people that vote for me. And it's one of the reasons I haven't gone out and spent most of my time raising money. I've spent most of my time raising votes because what you think and what you want matters to me, and it should matter to the leadership of this state. And so I have had just randomly, without asking, a couple of people endorse me, the sheriff in Pinal County and the county attorney down in Pinal County who endorsed my border security plan. I didn't ask them specifically to endorse me as a candidate because, as I say, I really just wanted to know input from people in their areas of expertise. And believe it or not, it has been a really liberating thing to be able to go and have the conversation with everybody involved. I don't have to worry about who is whose political consultant or who's lobbyist, who has a prior relationship with somebody. I've just been able to sit down with everybody and look them in the eye and say, talk to me about what's going on in your context, and it's been extremely helpful. So that's why I haven't rolled out the one endorsement per day. Frankly, I don't know why the governors of other states or people who are senators in other states would really care about the governor's race in Arizona. I think those are political favors being paid back by people who owe each other things. And I think it demonstrates exactly my point about what happens when the establishment gets all connected around this web of endorsements. So I appreciate you asking the question, and I hope in the end you'll see that the only people I really care about being endorsed by is you, really, just the voters, and we're going to go get this thing done together. So thanks very much, Karen, for the question. We have time for a couple more? Okay. We're going to go to Roxy in Flagstaff. Roxy, how are you? We were just up in Flagstaff night before last. It was beautiful up there. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. And how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
That's good. I wanted to find out about your stand on Common Core and what you aim to do about it.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm not in favor of Common Core. Let me tell you quickly why. The first issue is the federalization of education. I don't agree with that. I'm actually a fierce defender of the Constitution. I've read the 10th Amendment. I know what it says. It says that the federal government only gets a few enumerated powers and the rest are reserved to the state. Education is one of them. This is just another example of the federal government overreach, and it's Common Core in education, it's Obamacare with medicine, it's the EPA trying to manage the environment, it's the BLM trying to manage our land, it's the IRS with taxation. So many of these areas that the 10th Amendment never gave over to the federal government, education being one of the most significant. The second reason, and this may be even more personal and important, my husband's a high school teacher. When he retired from the military, he became a high school teacher. And so we've been seeing this evolution from Ames into the implementation of Common Core for about the last 12 years. And Common Core, the way it's been implemented in this state, takes such a disproportionately large chunk of the classroom time away from the teacher to just comply with standards. It leaves a very small amount of time for the teacher to actually teach. And I think that's backwards. I think it should be flipped the other way. I think you should spend the majority of your classroom time teaching and not have to spend such a big time teaching to a test. And so for those couple of reasons, I'm opposed to Common Core. What we should be doing really is establishing standards in state, and they should be applied at a local level. And we should be protecting school choice because we have one of the finest models of school choice of any state in the country. You can send your kids to a public school, a charter school, a private school, an online school, a home school, however you think is best to educate your kids, and those decisions should be made by parents. They're most well suited to do that. So I think together we can, with the legislature, either opt out of Common Core or fail to fund Common Core, and we can find a better solution to replace Ames, establish an academically rigorous environment for our kids so that when they graduate from the 12th grade, they actually know something. And then that's the way I think we ought to do it in Arizona. It worked for me. As I was growing up, I got a very fine public school education, and I think every kid in Arizona should have the same opportunity I did. So is this our last question? We're going to take our last question. I know there's still a whole lot of you in the call queue, but I want to go to Nancy in Lake Havasu City and then have just a minute to wrap up at the end of the call. So Nancy, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Nancy.
I'm so proud of you. Just very proud of you that you took the initiative to run for an office. And your military background, I have a brother, his 2 sons, and a daughter-in-law who are all military, Air Force, all retired now. I'm glad you're standing on your own. You're not asking somebody to sponsor you because like you said, they're all looking for something in return. So you should be so proud of yourself.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Nancy. It's been a long journey. You know, we've been doing this for about 12 months now. As I said, we've been in all 15 counties. We've traveled tens of thousands of miles. We've really worked hard to get to know the people of Arizona and to say, you know, what would it look like if you had a citizen representative? So thank you very much for recognizing that. We do count it a privilege. I've met some of the most incredible people, and, you know, you just can't imagine what it's like to have the opportunity to meet people, you know, on the one hand in Douglas and then, you know, on the one hand in Lake Havasu City. And they have similar but different issues. And it's been a rare privilege for me. So I very much appreciate your nice comments. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I know there's still a whole lot of people waiting in the queue. If you want to send us an email, we'll be happy to try to answer it. You can always send an email to teamjones@christinejones.com if you have a remaining question. Also, if you liked what you heard tonight and you'd love to help, we can always use people's help. I'm sure you saw that coming. In the last final days before the ballot, which is on Tuesday, we're doing a push to get people out to vote. And if you'd like to do that, if you're just looking for something to do to try to be involved a little bit, you're welcome to help us out on that. If you go to the website callsforchristine.com, CALLSFORCHRISTINE, callsforchristine.com. You can sign up to make a shift of 10 phone calls. It's not a lot, but you know, lots of people making 10 phone calls each reaches out to a lot of people. And we really feel like this is critical because in this election, less than 10% of the population are going to pick the next governor, and we can absolutely pick up enough votes just by the grassroots sharing with 10 people to knock this thing out of the park. And I think it will send a loud message to the establishment if we say we're the grassroots, we're willing to do this, and we really feel passionate about not having somebody in the governor's office who has strings attached all over the place. So if you want to do that, go to callsforchristine.com and you can do that. And then the last final thing I would say is, as we've traveled around, we've gotten to know our opponents really well. There are 5 of them remaining, and I have respect for each of these gentlemen. They all love Arizona, I think, in their own way for their own reasons. But I also know that collectively they have about 50 years in public office. And in 50 years, you would have thought, if you had such great plans for border security or education or the economy or land management or water or energy or any of the other things we talk about in this campaign, why didn't you bring them out before now? Why are we just now hearing about it? So what I would say is, I think those 50 years of office experience of my opponents demonstrate that they're good people, but we still have an absence of leadership. We still have a vacuum, and it needs to be filled by a fearless, determined, proven leader. That's why I'm running for governor. So I'm Christine Jones. I would love your support. Please vote. Please find somebody else to vote with you. And with your help, we're going to win this election, and we're going to go off and we're going to make something happen in Arizona that's going to be a model, and we're going to take leadership that the rest of the country is going to notice and they're going to admire. So thank you very much for being on the call. Have a great night, and I will talk to you again soon.